I'm on mute. Hello, how are you?
Good morning, Senator. Thank you so much for being here. I know you're very busy, 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 but thank you so much for being here. And with that, I'm going to just go ahead and yield it to our president, Dr. Downs, who's going to give you an official welcome. Thank you so much for being here. Dr. Downs.
So Senator Kamlager, first and foremost, thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule. You are one busy senator for California, and we so appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to join us today. As the newly elected president, I just want to formally welcome you to the Los Angeles chapter's first general meeting of 2022. We have approximately almost 50 members on our chapter roster, but the 30 or more members that we have on a call today, we're generationally diverse. We have many different experiences and backgrounds. So you have a wealth of individuals that really are advocating on behalf of the organization and the community. We also want to just remind you that we are a nonpartisan organization, but we appreciate and welcome your conversation with us today. This is something that's really impactful to our general members. And again, we just can't thank you enough. So I believe I am turning it over to our first Vice President of Programs, and that is Kimberly Watson.
Good morning, Senator Kamlager. I want to thank you for joining us today. It is so nice to see you again. And I just wanted to remind you, we know we've met you a few times, but I just wanted to remind you that we are an advocacy group. We advocate on behalf of Black women and girls in the areas of health, economic empowerment, education, and public policy. We also have a mentor program, and we have girls in our program that are ages 8 to 18. And we have several events coming up, and we will be extending invitations to you during the month of February and March in honor of Black History Month and International Women's Month. Our Economic Empowerment Committee is going to be doing several activities around the areas of financial literacy for our community members. We want to make sure that we all know how to manage our money, invest, and also build credit and then prepare for home ownership, because it's really about making sure that we are establishing generational wealth. So again, thank you for coming. Thank you for being here. And I would like to turn it over to our coalition sister, Sharita Smith.
Good morning, my sisters. Good morning, Senator Kamlager. Thank you for joining us this morning. I have a few questions for you this morning. The first is, what do you think are some of the biggest policy issues affecting the greater Los Angeles community today? Where do you believe that the National Coalition of 100 Black Women Los Angeles chapter can advocate on those issues?
So thank you for the question, and thank you all for the invitation. I am actually participating in our California Legislative Black Caucus retreat right now, and so have stepped out to talk with your this amazing chapter and with all of you amazing Black women. And believe it or not, we have spent 2 days actually talking about Black Californians and Black women. I think that we are in a unique opportunity now as Black women and Black Californians and Angelenos. We have the opportunity to elect an African-American woman to be our next mayor. We have not had an African-American as mayor since Tom Bradley, and we have never had a woman. And what kind of signal would that send about the ascendance of Black female power in ostensibly the largest and most powerful city in this country? We also have an opportunity from a policy standpoint to continue to elevate the issues around economic justice. Black women have, for generations, been either the breadwinners or the backbones of our families, figuring out ways to get the rent paid, keep the lights on, put food on the table. Those have been sort of micro examples or issues of economic sustainability. And we have an opportunity to elevate that even more as we talk about the inaffordability in LA, the cost of living going up and up, the numbers of Black homeless folks, including Black homeless women, going up and up in our city and in our county. As we talk about gentrification and a movement, a shifting of resources out of our communities, or sort of being absconded by others who come into our communities, and placing that within an economic framework. As we talk about infrastructure and who builds it, who invests in it, who uses it. As we talk about access to resources, if we're talking about energy, if we're talking about economic development, I think we have an opportunity to really focus on economic justice and economic equity, because that becomes the foundation for so many other social discussions that often permeate our news cycles and our, community family chats. But where we stand within the economics of this city is incredibly important. And you all have a voice and a platform and a network that is incredibly important and useful, quite frankly, to sharing that and to disseminating that information and those questions out.
Thank you. The second question is, as the author of AB 124, the Justice for Survivors Act, which successfully passed and was signed into law in October of 2021, what progress do you believe has been made since the passage of the bill? Beyond traditional legislation, what are other solutions you believe can end sex trafficking in Los Angeles?
I will say, I love how there are two questions in the one question, because, I'm trying to keep my brain focused on all of them. So I don't know how effective AB 124 is, because it just got signed into law and became effective January 1, and I think this is January 22. So I don't think anything revolutionary has happened in 21 days. But I do think that it will be the beginning of a different approach to how the courts and hopefully prosecutors and DAs look at charges or even convictions where circumstances include and involve sex trafficking, sexual abuse, sexual trauma, and the purchasing of bodies for sale. AB 124 came out of really the story of Kiana Aldrich, who was sold multiple times to men. She was purchased for sex. And, eventually she just took her life in her own hands, and she, went after her abuser owner and was incarcerated for a very long time. And her lawyer, asked for her to be released, asked for clemency because of the circumstances that led to, her criminal behavior and her charges. And is there an opportunity for judges to take a second look? So my hope is that this will empower communities, public defenders, defense attorneys, and DAs and judges to be more honest about sexual trauma that's going on in our communities. We don't talk about sex a lot, and we have a history, quite frankly, Black women and Black men have a history of sexual trauma. We've been traumatized by folks, historically, we've been traumatized by our masters. Then when we were free, we've still had to suffer that because we've been over-sexualized. We have been seen as folks who lack sensitivity, who have a higher tolerance for pain. And so when it comes to issues around sex and abuse and trauma and the infliction of all of that, the mainstream society doesn't think of us in that way, as fragile or as women who need support and uplift. We also know that there's a history of that with our Black men who are equally over-sexualized, and there are high degrees of sort of, fetishment placed on Black women's bodies and Black men. So the goal behind the bill is really to force those discussions. Why are you going to put the sister in prison for a long time because she decided to yank the man who was selling her? But when it's another woman, we have to jump through all kinds of hoops to protect her. But why do Black women not deserve the same consideration and the same protection? Why is it when our Black men get involved in criminal behavior because they were raped or sexually abused and assaulted, we don't want to talk about that? Because A, we don't want to talk about the fact that our Black men are being raped. B, we don't want to talk about the fact that sometimes that behavior gets modeled because there's no one in that person's inner circle to share with them that that was wrong what that person did to them. And we tell our Black men to suck it up, and then we act like none of that's going on in our community. So the goal behind 124 was to stimulate those kinds of honest discussions. Now, I don't know about you, I'm strong, but I'm not that strong. That if someone's going to repeatedly sell me and sexually abuse me and traffic me, that I'm not going to lash out. And the circumstances that lead me to do that should be taken into consideration. We've always been considered 3/5 of a human. And it continues in modern day in how the penal codes are written and implemented. So AB 124 was my opportunity to insert into the discussions that happen in courtrooms that we too are human and that our bodies are equally valuable and that they do get abused. And I hope that this will empower other folks within our communities to begin to talk about that, because sexual assault is real. Human trafficking is real. Why is it that we didn't start talking about homelessness, even though Black folks was homeless, until they ended up in white folks' communities? Why is it that it's taken us so long to talk about human trafficking? Because most of the women who are trafficked are young and Black and brown and foster. So, I'm hoping that people will find some cover in the bill that will allow them to also talk about these traumas. At the retreat, we were talking about this uptick in suicides among Black men and Black women. We have to get to the root of how we're feeling and how we've been treated and ignored to move the needle forward about then how we are responded to by the law.
Wow, how powerful and important. Thank you.
Thank you.
You're on mute, Sharita.
Sorry. Thank you. I was saying how powerful and how important your responses were. The third and final question I have for you is, based on your experience, how can we encourage Black women to become more involved in civic engagement and movements in Los Angeles?
Oh, yes, I love that question. So many times, folks say, yes, mental health is equally as important as physical health. If your insides are not good, then the outsides won't be good. Thank you, Vanessa, for that. Oftentimes when we're thinking about women getting more civically engaged, the go-to response is run for office. I'm here to tell you that's not for everybody, and not everybody should do it. If you have a life and a family and you like sleeping in your own bed, then maybe some offices you should not be running for. But you can get involved in boards and commissions at the local level, at the county level, at the state level. There are applications that you can fill out. There are thousands of these boards and commissions. And you can also get involved with candidates that you care about or with the process by joining a campaign. I am part of a new initiative that we're going to be launching with the California Black Women's Collective about putting together a consortium of Black women practitioners who can help fundraise, manage campaigns, manage money as treasurers, keep the books right, work on press. There are all of these components and elements of running a campaign that need people and bodies. And as you see all of these folks running for office, I can tell you very few of us have a lot of Black women on our teams because we have yet to build that bench. And it doesn't have to be full-time. You can have your full-time job as a CPA and then also support a candidate. And so I think one way that people can think of getting more involved is to think about some of those behind the scenes positions where your expertise as a sister and probably your ability to get sapphire when you need to, your ability to infuse a Black voice, a Black female voice in a space that traditionally has not heard us is really important. Stacey Abrams has got some Black women working with her. And look at her moving mountains, scaring people, running for things. And so how do we support those kinds of women? By working in the system with them. Part of the reason why you don't see a lot of Black women running is because Black women look around and they say, well, who's out there to help me? And do you always want somebody who doesn't look like you managing your money? We're raising money to pay for those positions. Shouldn't we be paying ourselves, our sisters? And as women who are wise and have seen a lot, there are great opportunities for you to share and teach younger women in this space, because what we don't want to lose is the history. And so how do you become that griot to impart that history on the new folks coming up through the leadership chain? Because if they're running and winning and legislating without understanding the history, we're going to be in trouble.
Thank you, Senator Kamlager. Now I'm going to turn it over to see if there are any questions in the chat.
LaTanya, you can go ahead.
Okay, I'm good. Thank you. Greetings, Senator Kamlager. Thank you for joining us today. We know you do have a busy schedule, so I'll get right to it. I have a question that was asked from some members. And members, if you have any other questions, please drop them in the chat. In 2017, you represented the board and district at our 12th conference, which was the Los Angeles Schools College's strategies at the development of the African American man-child. This was in 1992. Okay, I don't know if you recall. Given this, with the significant downward of African American student enrollment, and particularly African American men at the Los Angeles Southwest College and the Los Angeles Community College District, could you look into this concern or kind of talk a little bit particular and in general on the African American faculty and staff with assisting or helping or looking at that, just in general? It was a question that was fielded from one of our members.
So what I will say is, when I was on the board, we worked really hard to make sure that we got Umoja dollars, which went to the Umoja program, which supports Black students in their endeavors at the community colleges. So I worked really hard to protect it. I also worked to make sure that we got more money so that it was comparable to Puente, which is the same program for Latino students. And then work really hard to kind of talk about diversity within our faculty. How do faculty get hired? How do we diversify our vendor pools so that we have African Americans, in many of those vendor pools, if it's for construction, if it's for legal services, if it's for maintenance services, et cetera. There are some things that can happen when you change law or ordinances, but there's also things that happen by being sort of, in the mix as a member, pushing in on your chancellor, your presidents, your, union allies to change practices. So my hope is that Nichelle Henderson, as the only Black woman on that board now, is able to step in and continue to lean in and push. What I will say is that, now there's money in this year's budget for Amend, which is specific to Black men in our community colleges. I think it's a couple of $1 million to make sure that they have the support that they need so that we can drive up enrollment. Now, enrollment is down in general.
Exactly.
At the community colleges at LACCD for a number of reasons. We had a recession, and then we had to cut classes, and then people were feeling some kind of way, didn't want to come back. And then we had, the economy was better, so people were more interested in getting a job than going back to school. So that's the ebb and flow of a campus and how the campus works to connect with its partners and its community members, to show them that they're there for them. And then it's the responsibility of, board members to figure out the policies that should be tweaked to allow for greater participation of African Americans. There will always be more work to do, but as we see a declining population of African Americans in the state and in the city, we have to make sure that the ones that are still here have equal access to as many of the opportunities that we're trying to avail.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions in the chat. I do have a personal privilege that I'm gonna take of this. I do have a question in reference to the recent young lady that was found on the side of the highway in the LA area. Why isn't, and how can we make it happen where she can get the same trajectory, whereas the young lady, our college student, 23 years old, USC, $250 million trillion, and her suspect that killed her was apprehended within 4 days. And we're still trying to figure out what happened to a relative of mine, hence the middle name is Theus, trying to figure out what do we need to do to get that trajectory going, not just for her as a relative, but just for those young ladies that have remain nameless under these type of crimes in our city. Thank you.
Yeah, so look, this is a great opportunity to put all the names on the list, rally our sister organizations that have Black women in their title, or specific to Black women, if it's the Black Women's Democratic Club and National Coalition of 100 Black Women and NCJW and all of that. And get us an open letter that we put in the Sentinel, that we make go viral. And talk about the abuses that have happened to Black women that get pushed under the rug. I don't know. Does too much melanin mean you don't get enough compensation or recognition?
Absolutely.
I think it's time we change the formula. But you know, if they don't hear from us, then they'll keep on going. So, you know, we have made some noise. You know, I have, as a senator, raised it with my Black Caucus members. And so we are talking about a way to respond, but I think we're also looking at a way to respond in a manner that's full to all of Black California, because it's the California Legislative Black Caucus. But trust and believe, you know, there's always also the victims' compensation. I mean, you know, there are ways for groups like you to talk about these issues. I mean, remember the sister years ago who got beat up on the side of the 10 freeway? Let's elevate those. I mean, training happened as a result of that, right? We got in CHPs behind. And so that's what we're doing behind the scenes, but it helps when there's pressure from the outside, because it means that what we're doing is the right thing to do.
Okay, thank you. And this is truly the last question. What is the status of Black women? What is the status of the Black Women and Girls Act?
I don't know. I'll have to get back to you. I know we have a commission, but I don't know that that's what you're talking about. And so
That's it.
Oh, okay. So
That's
it's still
it.
going. It's still going. We have one for Black girls of color, and then we have one for Black men of color. And so I think the chairs change. Most of that kind of is happening on the Assembly side, not the Senate side, but it's still moving. We have a number, you know, we have Assemblymember Burke and Bonta and Weber. And I don't know which of them is on that. But it's definitely something that we talk about, you know, making sure that there's funding for in the budget.
Okay, if you can just get back to us or send us some information on it.
Well, what do you want to know?
That would be great. We were just trying to find out who is the chair, who can we contact?
Oh, I see. That should be on the website, but I will make sure that Naomi, sends that information to you.
Okay, and then one thing is that we did neglect is, I know you have to go jump back on your call. Can you just give us a nutshell in 1 or 2 minutes, how you got started, what your background is, you know, your intro? We neglected to ask that for some members that are on that may not be familiar with your plight, and what you're doing for us here in California is truly appreciated. And then that's it. Thank you. I'm done.
Yeah. I don't know how I got started. I'm a girl from Chicago. I got my first taste of politics by helping my grandmother work to get Harold Washington elected the first Black mayor of Chicago. I come from parents who are social justice advocates. My dad was a social worker and an electrician. My mom is an actress. She was a teacher. It's in my blood. I have been out here for a very long time. I went to USC, was really transformed by the riots, did a lot of work in the nonprofit world, eventually ended up at Crystal Stairs. And then that was where I connected with Holly Mitchell and worked with her for a very long time, running her campaign, serving as her district director before I ran for office myself. Los Angeles Community College Board, Assembly, Senate. I've been able to do the work I've been able to do because I've been supported by Black women and mentored by Black women, criticized by Black women, but embraced. It's difficult. Many of us are the only one or one of a couple in the areas where we're working. You know, I too am shamed and silenced and marginalized, and I, you know, put my knee pads on and my elbow pads on every day, like many of you, because the thing I'm doing is bigger than me. And the thing I'm doing is reminding California that we are here, that we created the state, and that we deserve a state that sees us. I just want to thank you all for your activism and energy, for your invitation, for your persistence, because, you know, time is about waiting us all out and hoping we will eventually be quiet and go away and not continue to fight. You know, and so part of it's about figuring out the best way to do that, right? Where our skills are, and how we can most make a difference. And how do we support each other? And fight against those that really are interested in us fighting one another. And so here we are.
Senator Kamlager, I personally can't tell you how impactful today has been. Your golden nuggets of knowledge, of inspiration, just what you're passionate about. Wow, all I can say is wow. So on behalf of the Los Angeles chapter, on behalf of the Coalition of 100 Black Women, you know, regionally, again, as a chapter, nationally, thank you. Thank you so, so very much. We will continue to collaborate with you. We have many things planned for February, for March. We now have you, or have always had you, on speed dial. So please, please look forward to continuing our collaboration with you, continuing to fight the cause for so many advocacy issues that you talked about today. So on behalf, thank you so very much from the Los Angeles chapter.
Thank you so much. And apologies for my technical difficulties getting on earlier, but I appreciate all of you. And I'm really grateful for your friendship and your partnership with me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Naomi. Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you, Naomi.
Yes, and I'll be sure to get back to you about that question too. I was already doing some preliminary searching, so I'll email you all.